At exactly 10 o'clock in the morning, on June 15, 2026, the nib of a golden fountain pen scratched across a thick sheet of parchment, effectively ending a bloodline's financial legacy. King Charles III signed a document that many within the palace walls are calling the Blood Will. This was the moment the royal bank officially closed its doors to the Duke of Sussex. If you find this insight into the Crown's secret finances fascinating, please hit the like button right now and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network to stay updated on every royal power move. To understand how we reached this point of no return, we must look back to September 2022. When Queen Elizabeth II breathed her last, the world stood still, but behind the mourning veils, a different calculation was beginning. Prince Harry reportedly believed that his father's ascension would signal a new era of generosity. Sources close to the Duke suggest he whispered to aides that his share of the royal estates would finally secure his family's future in California. He viewed the transition as a chance to claim his piece of the billion-dollar royal pie. However, the reality was far colder. By February 2024, the atmosphere in London shifted from transition to crisis. King Charles received his shock medical diagnosis. It was during those long nights of reflection that the king realized his time was no longer infinite. He had to decide, would he be a doting father or the protector of a 1,000-year-old institution? The king chose the crown. He reportedly told his closest counselors that the survival of the monarchy outweighed any personal sentiment. He was no longer just Papa. He was a sovereign guarding a fortress. This evolution led directly to the events of June 2026. The king established a blind trust, a legal iron curtain that placed £650 million of private wealth under the absolute control of Prince William. By doing so, Charles effectively handed his eldest son the keys to the family safe, while leaving Harry on the outside looking in. The most devastating blow came in the fine print. An expected inheritance of £20 million for Harry was summarily deleted. The king's justification was whispered through the corridors of Buckingham Palace. He allegedly stated that Harry had already collected his inheritance early by selling the family's private history through his memoir, Spare. The king was heard telling his legal team that those who profit from the crown's secrets cannot expect to be supported by its coffers. Do you think the king is being fair or too harsh? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Now, the financial walls are closing in on Montecito. With the royal tap turned off, Harry is facing a staggering reality. His annual security bill alone is estimated at $3,200,000. Without the sovereign's support, the countdown to a personal financial crisis has begun. For Prince Harry, the realization hit home when he was informed that no further funds would be funneled to a prince who had traded his duty for a Hollywood paycheck. The era of the royal bank is over, and the era of the blood will has begun. Stay tuned to the Royal Insider Network as we continue to track the fallout of this historic freeze. The calendar was the first weapon used against the exiles. To understand the cold, legal precision of what is happening now, we have to look back to January 2020. That was the moment of Megxit, the day Prince Harry and Meghan Markle walked away from their duties, promising a life of service while seeking financial independence. For 5 years, the palace watched and waited. By January 2025, an invisible line was crossed. The Sussexes had officially contributed 0 working days to the crown in half a decade. Behind palace walls, this wasn't just a family rift anymore, it was a breach of contract. In the shadows of early June 2026, a document began to circulate among a very small circle of senior advisors. It was the draft of the Letters Patent 2026. In the world of British royalty, a letters patent is the ultimate exercise of the sovereign's will, a legal decree that can change the very fabric of the monarchy. This specific draft, reportedly co-authored in secret by King Charles and Prince William, has been described by insiders as a legislative guillotine. The content of this document is ruthless. It proposes an automatic suspension of the His Royal Highness style and all ducal titles for any member of the family who remains inactive in official duties for a continuous period of 5 years. This isn't a personal attack, it is a systemic purge. Prince William is said to be the primary architect behind this aggressive stance. Those close to the Prince of Wales suggest his mindset is one of total modernization. William reportedly told his father during a private meeting at Sandringham that he refused to inherit a mess of half-in, half-out royals. He allegedly insisted that the king must take the heat for this decision now, so that William's own future reign can begin with a clean slate. The crown is not a dormant brand name. William was overheard telling a high-ranking official, "It is a working office. If you don't work the office, you don't keep the name." This move creates a terrifying reality for Meghan Markle. For years, the Duchess title has been the cornerstone of her global identity and her business ventures in Hollywood. From lifestyle brands to production deals, the title is her golden ticket. If the 2026 Act is finalized, the name Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, could vanish from legal documents overnight. Without that royal prefix, she becomes just another celebrity in a crowded California market. The business license that her brand relies on is effectively built on a foundation of British soil that is being pulled out from under her. The noose is tightening. The Sussexes are realizing that the 5-year grace period they thought they had was actually a countdown to a total titular erasure. The king is no longer just a father mourning the loss of a relationship. He is a monarch signing the warrants of a professional execution. Harry and Meghan are standing on the edge of a prestige cliff, watching as the very titles that define their public existence are prepared for the archives. As the draft of the letters patent moves toward the final signature, the question is no longer if they will lose their status, but how they will survive once the world stops addressing them as royal highnesses. The guillotine is raised, the blade is sharpened, and the clock has already run out. What happens when the person who walked away from the palace realizes they can never truly go back, and the palace has finally decided to stop calling them back? The answers lie in the final, cold pages of the King's new law. On the morning of June 18, 2026, the glass walls of a high-rise office in Beverly Hills witnessed a scene of absolute chaos. This was the headquarters of WME, the powerhouse agency representing Meghan Markle. News had just leaked of the King's new letters patent and the financial freeze. For the Sussex Empire in Montecito, the blood will wasn't just a family dispute, it was a bankruptcy notice. The atmosphere was described by insiders as a war room scenario, where the realization hit that the royal connection, their only real currency, was being systematically erased by London. To understand the desperation, one must look at the financial cliff the couple had been approaching since late 2025. Their landmark $100 million deal with Netflix, once the crown jewel of their American dream, had officially expired. There were no cameras following them, no red carpets being rolled out, and most importantly, no renewal. The streaming giant had reportedly signaled that the royal fatigue was real, and without fresh, intimate access to the British monarchy, the Sussexes were no longer a primary investment. During that emergency summit at WME in June, an internal report was presented that sent shockwaves through the room. The data was brutal. It predicted that if the couple lost their official titles and were fully deroyaled by the King's new law, their brand value would evaporate by 70% almost overnight. Agents reportedly told Meghan that the Hollywood elite doesn't invite former royals to the table. They invite the people who hold the keys to the palace. One executive was heard bluntly stating that they were no longer selling a fairy tale. They were selling a tragedy that the public had already finished reading. Meghan's response was a pivot to what insiders call the nuclear option. She reportedly began a frantic series of communications with top-tier American media outlets, shifting the focus entirely to her children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, who had been largely shielded from the spotlight, were suddenly thrust into the center of a desperate PR counteroffensive. Meghan allegedly argued to her team that the public would never stand for a grandfather who impoverishes his own grandchildren. She was heard instructing her advisors to lean heavily on the children's titles, using them as human shields against the king's legal maneuvers. The narrative was clear. If Charles struck at Harry and Meghan, he was striking at the innocent prince and princess in California. However, the most chilling part of this shift was the psychological state of Prince Harry. Those close to the Montecito household describe a man who has finally realized the gravity of his position. As he watched the PR machinery spin, Harry reportedly felt like a spectator in his own life. He had spent years believing he was building a new legacy. But as the royal bank closed and the titles began to slip away, the reality became undeniable. He wasn't the lead actor in this Hollywood drama. He was the pawn whose value was tied entirely to the family he had walked away from. The guillotine in London had fallen, and the reverberations were shattering the peace in California. The Sussexes were now fighting a two-front war, a legal battle with the British Crown and a financial battle with a Hollywood industry that smells failure from a mile away. As the news of the letters patent spreads, the world is left wondering, what does a king's son do when he has no kingdom, no money, and no way back? The answer may lie in the final, desperate move being planned behind the closed gates of the Montecito mansion. The cold stone walls of Royal Lodge have stood for centuries, but in the first week of June 2026, they began to feel more like a prison than a sanctuary. While King Charles was busy finalizing the financial freeze in London, his eldest son, Prince William, was issuing a different kind of decree. He delivered a 30-day ultimatum to the Duke of York, Prince Andrew. Vacate the £30 million mansion or face the full legal weight of the crown. This was no longer just a family disagreement. It was the birth of an unprecedented rebellion within the House of Windsor. To understand why this moment is so explosive, we have to go back to January 2023, when Prince Harry released his memoir, Spare. That book didn't just sell millions of copies. It gave a name to a specific type of royal resentment. It created a rallying cry for the spares, those members of the family who felt used, discarded, and replaced. While Harry was venting his frustrations from a mansion in California, Prince Andrew was fighting his own battle for survival in the aftermath of early 2024. That was when the unsealing of the Jeffrey Epstein court documents effectively buried Andrew's hopes of ever returning to public life. By mid-2026, William had seen enough. The Prince of Wales reportedly told his father that the monarchy could no longer afford to subsidize a disgraced lifestyle. William's first move was to cut Andrew's £3 million annual security allowance. Without that protection, and with a 30-day clock ticking on his eviction from Royal Lodge, Andrew found himself in a position of total desperation. But instead of quietly fading away, the Duke of York reached out to the only other man who understood his rage, Prince Harry. What followed was the formation of what palace insiders are calling the Unholy Alliance. Sources claim that a series of encrypted phone calls took place between Montecito and the Royal Lodge during that first week of June. Andrew, a man who knows the darkest corners of the palace, and Harry, a man who has already set the bridge on fire, reportedly began sharing information. Andrew was overheard telling a close associate that if the Crown wants a war, they've forgotten, who knows where the bodies are buried. Their plan was as calculated as it was dangerous. The alliance began orchestrating a shadow PR campaign designed to paint Prince William as a cold-blooded tyrant. The goal was to leak a series of carefully crafted stories to the international press, portraying William as a man who would throw his own uncle onto the street and leave his brother destitute while he sat on a £1 billion fortune. They wanted to create a narrative of a cruel king-in-waiting, to force King Charles into a position of guilt. Andrew reportedly told Harry that if they could make the public fear William's reign of terror before it even began, they might force the king to soften the terms of the blood will. The stakes could not be higher. This isn't just about a house or a paycheck. It is a battle for the soul of the monarchy. On one side stands William, the enforcer who believes the institution must be purged of its liabilities to survive. On the other side stands the Alliance of the Spares. Two men who believe they are fighting for their lives against a machine that wants to delete them from history. As the 30-day deadline approaches, The tension inside the palace is at a breaking point. The question everyone is asking behind closed doors is simple. How far will a man go when he has nothing left to lose but his name? The answer is currently being written in the shadows of Royal Lodge. The reason the palace felt bold enough to finally drop the legislative guillotine on the exiles wasn't just due to legal strategy or financial necessity. It was because they held an unbeatable hand, a secret weapon that had become the most powerful figure in the British monarchy. By June 2026, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, had achieved something no royal had since the height of Queen Elizabeth's reign, an approval rating of 85%. This staggering number is the real reason the king felt safe enough to sign the blood will. He knew that while the public might debate his coldness, they would never stop protecting Catherine. To understand this shift in power, we have to revisit the darkest days of March 2024. The world remembers where they were when the video was released. Catherine, sitting alone on a simple garden bench, revealing her battle with cancer. It was a moment of profound vulnerability that shifted the global narrative. She wasn't just a fashion icon or a future queen anymore. She became a symbol of human resilience. Behind palace walls, this transition was viewed as a fire-forging moment. An aide reportedly remarked during that time that Catherine had stopped being a member of the family and had become the soul of the institution. Fast forward to the current climate of June 2026. Catherine has emerged from that period of adversity with an untouchable aura of authority. She is no longer just the wife of the heir. She is the anchor of the entire system. King Charles reportedly recognized this early on. During a private briefing with his constitutional advisors, the king allegedly made a cold, calculated observation. He reportedly stated that the monarchy could withstand any amount of drama from California as long as the public saw Catherine as the future. He saw her as the social license that allowed him to be ruthless with Harry and Andrew. She is the shield, the king was heard telling his legal team, behind which we can do the necessary work to save the crown. This Catherine effect has created a new order that has completely neutralized the Sussexes' PR tactics. In Montecito, Meghan Markle's strategy has often relied on being the loudest voice in the room. But in London, Catherine has mastered the power of silence. Every time a new leak or a new complaint comes from California, Catherine simply carries out a royal duty with a calm, stoic grace. The contrast is devastating. While the Alliance of the Spares tries to paint the family as a collection of villains, the public sees a woman who faced her own mortality with dignity and returned to serve her country. The tragedy for Harry and Meghan is that they are no longer fighting the king. They are fighting the overwhelming popularity of a woman who has become the nation's favorite. In the boardrooms of Hollywood and the halls of Westminster, the consensus is the same. You cannot win a war against an 85% approval rating. Every attack on the firm now feels to the public like an attack on Catherine herself. As the new laws take effect and the financial taps are tightened, the king is betting everything on this one truth. He believes that the survival of the monarchy doesn't depend on being liked by everyone. It depends on being respected by the majority. And with Catherine standing firmly at the center of the new era, the palace believes they have finally silenced the noise from across the Atlantic. But as the exiles are pushed further into the corner and the blood will becomes a reality, one question remains. What happens when those with nothing left to lose decide to strike at the one person the monarchy cannot afford to lose? The Game of Thrones has entered its most dangerous phase yet. The hammer has finally fallen. Today, June 25, 2026, the era of royal rebellion has been officially declared dead. In the quiet, high-ceilinged offices of Buckingham Palace, a group of senior advisors known as the Hawks has placed the final wax seal on the most aggressive restructuring of the British monarchy in 3 centuries. The documents signed today do more than just cut off funding. They effectively erase the Sussexes from the future of the institution. If you want to stay informed on how the world's most famous family is reshaping itself for a new century, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network right now. To understand why this day was inevitable, We have to look back to May 23rd, 2023. It was the day of King Charles III's coronation. While the world watched the golden carriages, the real story was written in the seating chart. Prince Harry was relegated to the third row, hidden behind the plume of Princess Anne's hat. It was a visual prophecy of exactly where he would stand in the years to come. Behind the working members, behind the legacy, and eventually, out of the picture entirely. What we are witnessing today is simply the legal conclusion to that moment in the Abbey. Prince William, the architect of this new world order, has reportedly delivered a chilling message to his staff and the wider family. According to those within his inner circle, the Prince of Wales was heard saying that the Crown is not a family charity, and our patience for those who treat it as a revolving door has been exhausted. William's vision for the monarchy is one of absolute discipline. He has redefined the term working royal with a cold corporate precision. From this moment on, the glory of the crown, the titles, the security, the historic estates, is reserved exclusively for those who contribute their blood, sweat, and tears to the institution. The half-in, half-out lifestyle that Harry and Meghan dreamed of has been formally outlawed. The blood will and the new letters patent have created a fortress around the monarchy that no amount of Hollywood PR can penetrate. In London, the response to the frantic cries and media leaks coming from California is a deafening, absolute silence. The palace has realized that their greatest power is not in winning the shouting match, but in refusing to participate in it. While Montecito scrambles to sell a narrative of victimhood, the palace is busy projecting a narrative of duty and stability. The King and the Prince of Wales have closed the books. There are no more negotiations. There are no more olive branches. As we stand here on June 25th, 2026, the transition is complete. We are no longer living in the era of Queen Elizabeth's soft diplomacy. We have entered the iron era of the future King William. It is a world where the institution comes before the individual, and where the family name is a debt to be paid, not a check to be cashed. The rebellion that began in January 2020 has been systematically dismantled, leaving the exiles in a gilded cage of their own making, while the crown moves forward without looking back. What do you think about this new, hardened stance of the British monarchy? Is it a necessary evolution or a cruel betrayal? We want to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. We read every single one. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the world of the royals. For everyone here at the Royal Insider Network, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next update.
History has a haunting way of repeating itself within the corridors of Windsor Castle, often through the same patterns of defiance and departure. In 1936, the British monarchy was rocked to its core when King Edward VIII abdicated the throne for a divorced American woman, Wallis Simpson. Fast forward, exactly 84 years to January 2020, and the world watched in stunned silence as Prince Harry followed that exact same trajectory, walking away from his royal duties alongside Meghan Markle. This wasn't just a coincidence, it was the completion of a cycle that palace insiders have long whispered about as a generational curse. But while the men made the choice to leave it, was the strategic image building of the women that signaled the revolution long before the official announcement. Meghan Markle didn't just join the royal family, she entered with a wardrobe that functioned as a tactical weapon. From her very first public appearance, she began positioning herself as the new Diana, a global icon who was both part of the system and entirely above it. The most shocking evidence of this ambition lies in the cold, hard numbers of the royal ledger. To understand the scale of Meghan's spending, we have to look back at 2011. During her first year as a royal Catherine, the Princess of Wales spent an estimated $150,000 on her wardrobe. It was a figure considered substantial at the time, yet it was rooted in a commitment to British high street brands and local designers. 7 years later, in 2018, Meghan Markle didn't just break that record, she obliterated it. Her clothing expenses for her debut year soared to over $500,000. That is more than 3 times the amount spent by Catherine. This massive $500,000 investment wasn't going toward British heritage brands like Burberry or Alexander McQueen. Instead, Meghan turned her back on the unwritten royal rule of supporting domestic industry, pouring the majority of that budget into French couture houses like Givenchy and Dior. If these staggering figures surprise you, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network so you never miss a deep dive into the secrets of the monarchy. The tension behind palace walls regarding this spending was immediate. Senior advisors reportedly pulled the couple aside to discuss the optics of such an astronomical budget. One high-ranking official is said to have quietly asked if such luxury was necessary for a public servant. According to sources close to the situation, Meghan's response was both firm and revealing. She reportedly told her team that she wasn't just representing a family, she was building a global brand. She allegedly argued that to be taken seriously as a modern leader on the world stage, she had to look the part regardless of the price tag or the origin of the label. Every outfit was a calculated move. When she stepped out in a bespoke Givenchy gown, she wasn't just wearing a dress. She was telling the British public and the royal establishment that her vision was international, not provincial. By frequently mirroring the silhouettes and style choices of the late Princess Diana, she was subtly telling the world that she was the true heir to Diana's legacy. It was a $500,000 gamble designed to ensure that if she ever chose to leave, she would do so as a global superstar, not just a minor royal. What do you think about this $500,000 wardrobe? Was it a necessary cost for a modern royal, or was it the first sign of the exit to come? Drop a comment below and join the conversation. The foundation for the greatest royal split in nearly a century was being laid one designer stitch at a time. The transition from the high-stakes world of French couture to the seemingly simple world of casual wear marked a new, more subtle battlefield within the royal family. In the world of the monarchy, off-duty is never truly off-duty. Every fabric choice carries a message. Meghan Markle understood this better than anyone, using everyday staples to signal her identity as a system breaker. She wasn't just wearing clothes, she was crafting a narrative that pitted Hollywood's relaxed freedom against the rigid expectations of the British establishment. The most iconic example of this occurred in September 2017 during the Invictus Games in Toronto. Meghan made her first high-profile appearance alongside Prince Harry, wearing a simple white button-down shirt and a pair of ripped blue jeans. To the casual observer, it was a classic look reminiscent of Princess Diana's appearance in Bosnia in August 1997. However, within the palace, the reaction was far from casual. A senior aide reportedly remarked in a voiceover-style reflection that while Diana wore jeans to look approachable while doing dangerous humanitarian work, Meghan's ripped denim felt like a calculated messiness. The critique was that she was trying too hard to look like she wasn't trying at all, a move seen as more California influencer than future Duchess. Then there was the beige trench coat, the ultimate symbol of the British woman at work. Princess Diana had used the classic Burberry silhouette to project a sense of on-duty reliability. Meghan adopted this exact formula, often draping the coat over her shoulders in a modern, fashion-forward way. While it was a nod to British tradition, critics felt it was a costume of Britishness being worn by an American actress. It was the same look, but with a completely different energy, one that suggested she was playing a role rather than inhabiting a life. Even the denim jacket became a tool for self-positioning. Diana famously wore denim to theme parks with her sons to show she was a mother first and a royal second. Meghan, however, wore denim jackets to high-profile sporting events and during international tours. To the traditional media, these weren't mom moments, they were Pinterest moments. They looked like a perfectly curated aesthetic for a lifestyle blog designed to be shared and emulated by millions of followers online. This psychological divide grew deeper with every public appearance. Meghan saw herself as a modernizing force, someone who could breathe life into a stiff institution with a dose of American cool. But to the British press and the palace inner circle, this was a blatant disregard for centuries of royal etiquette. She was a system breaker who refused to bend to the rules of the institution. Every time she chose a casual ensemble over a formal dress, the question intensified. Was she modernizing the monarchy? Or was she simply signaling that she was never truly planning to stay? The more she embraced her Hollywood roots through her wardrobe, the more the traditionalists began to realize that the new Diana had a vision for her future that might not include the palace at all. Time and place are the ultimate storytellers in the royal saga, and nothing demonstrates the power of visual memory more than the haunting parallels between the years 1985 and 2019. In October 1985 at Aberdeen Airport, Princess Diana was photographed holding a baby Prince Harry, who wore a distinctive white ruffled hat. Fast forward 34 years to September 2019 in Cape Town, South Africa, and the image was eerily recreated. Meghan Markle held her son Archie, who wore a nearly identical hat as they stepped off the plane. It was the first clear sign that Meghan wasn't just dressing her child. She was summoning the image of a legendary past to validate her present. But the most profound instance of these ghost protocols occurred in the heart of Africa. In March 1990, Princess Diana arrived in Nigeria under a cloud of deep marital isolation. Her relationship with Prince Charles had effectively frozen over, and she used her fashion as a shield of self-reliance. She wore a bold set of gold jewelry, a specific choker, and matching earrings that became the symbol of her independent spirit during that tour. She was a woman standing alone yet projecting immense strength. 34 years later, in May 2024, the world witnessed what critics called a quasi-royal tour. Although they were no longer working members of the monarchy, Harry and Meghan arrived in Nigeria to a reception that mirrored a formal state visit. The most striking detail, however, was not the diplomatic meetings, but a very specific choice of accessories. Meghan appeared wearing a gold choker and classic earrings that were nearly identical in style and placement to those worn by her late mother-in-law in the very same country decades earlier. This wasn't just a tribute, it was a move that royal psychologists believe was designed to trigger a specific emotional response. Observers noted that by replicating Diana's aesthetic in the same geographic location, Meghan was effectively stepping into Diana's shoes within Harry's subconscious. A senior royal analyst reflected on this strategy, stating that by looking like the mother he lost, Meghan wasn't just his wife, she became the figure he felt he had to protect at all costs. It was a visual reinforcement of the narrative that history was repeating itself, and that this time Harry had to save the persecuted princess from the forces that supposedly failed his mother. One palace source recounted a quiet conversation among staff who were watching the Nigeria tour from London. One official reportedly whispered that the level of imitation felt less like an honor and more like a tactical activation of Harry's past trauma. By positioning herself as the reincarnation of Diana in the very place Diana once stood alone, Meghan created a reality where she and Harry were fighting a war against the world. As the couple moved through Nigeria in May 2024, the line between the past and the present became dangerously blurred. Was this a genuine attempt to keep a legacy alive, or was it a sophisticated method of emotional branding? The deeper one looks into these mirrored moments, the more it seems that the jewelry and the hats are just the surface of a much more complex psychological game. The question remains, how far will these echoes of the past go before the present is completely consumed by them? The battle for the visual soul of the monarchy moved from the streets to the grand ballrooms, where Hollywood's red carpet instincts collided head-on with Buckingham Palace's centuries-old decorum. In the world of high fashion, a dress is never just a dress, it is a declaration of intent. For Meghan Markle, the evening gown became her most potent tool in challenging the rigid hierarchy of the British establishment, often drawing direct inspiration from the most rebellious moments of Princess Diana's life. The first major signal was sent in May 2018 during the evening reception of the royal wedding. Meghan appeared in a stunning white halter-neck gown by Stella McCartney. To fashion historians, the silhouette was an unmistakable echo of June 1992, when Princess Diana famously wore an electric blue Versace halter-neck dress. By choosing this specific cut for her wedding night, Meghan was signaling her arrival not as a traditional royal bride, but as a modern, glamorous figure who, much like Diana, was ready to embrace international designers and bold feminine power. However, the most controversial parallels were drawn from the concept of the revenge dress. In June 1994, Princess Diana stepped out at the Serpentine Gallery in a black off-the-shoulder gown that broke every royal rule in the book. It was her way of telling the world she was free. Years later, Meghan frequently adopted the off-the-shoulder look, most notably at the Trooping the Color in June 2018. In the eyes of the palace traditionalists, this was a breach of the unwritten protocol, which dictates that royal women should maintain a certain level of modesty during official state events. The tension escalated when Meghan appeared in a shimmering scarlet-red Roland Mouret gown in January 2019. While Diana had always seemed to glow naturally under the camera flashes, critics and palace insiders felt Meghan's approach was different. One former palace staffer described the atmosphere as a clash of ideologies, noting that while Diana used fashion to express her emotions, Meghan seemed to be using it to dominate the headlines. There was a sense that she was performing the role of a princess with a level of Hollywood intensity that the British establishment found jarring. Behind the scenes, a quiet war was being waged between the Duchess's office and the Queen's senior advisors. The palace has a strict unspoken hierarchy regarding hemlines, necklines, and the allure factor of a royal's wardrobe. Royal experts revealed that advisors frequently cautioned Meghan about her choices, particularly her preference for high slits and bare shoulders, which were seen as too Hollywood for a working duchess. The response from Meghan's camp was reportedly one of frustration. She allegedly argued that the monarchy needed to evolve if it wanted to remain relevant to a global audience. But as the gap between her style and royal tradition widened, so did the rift between her and the institution. Each bold dress was a victory in the court of public opinion, but a defeat in the eyes of the palace. As we look at these iconic gowns, one has to wonder, was she trying to modernize the crown, or was she simply outgrowing it? The next chapter of this fashion war would prove to be the most decisive one yet. While the ghost of Princess Diana provided the spiritual blueprint for Meghan Markle's wardrobe, the real-world battleground was found in the hallway of Kensington Palace, where a direct confrontation with the Kate Middleton template began to unfold. This wasn't just a matter of two women having similar tastes, it was a high-stakes game of visual chess. For years, the Princess of Wales had been the gold standard for royal style, perfecting a look that signaled stability, tradition, and a future queen. When Meghan arrived, she didn't just adopt this template, she attempted to reinvent it, leading to what insiders call the wardrobe hierarchy conflict. The first major shot in the silent war was fired in November 2017. For her official engagement announcement, Meghan chose a white wrap coat that instantly drew comparisons to Kate's 2013 aesthetic. By choosing this specific silhouette for the most important photograph of her life, Meghan was signaling that she understood the royal rules of dress, yet she was determined to wear them with a modern American confidence. This pattern continued with the use of tartan. In the royal family, wearing the traditional Scottish plaid is a profound diplomatic tool. When Kate wears tartan in Scotland, it is a gesture of political and historical respect. However, when Meghan began incorporating tartan into her tours, palace traditionalists viewed it differently. They saw it as a visual lane copy, taking a successful trope associated with Kate and using it as a fashion statement rather than a diplomatic one. It was as if Meghan was trying to beat the system at its own game, using the monarchy's own symbols to build her personal brand. The contrast became even sharper with the white pantsuit. Kate's approach to tailoring is legendary. Every blazer is measured to the millimeter to project a sense of flawless, unwavering duty. Meghan, however, pushed back with oversized, relaxed American-style suits. It was a direct challenge to the British fit. A senior fashion advisor reportedly observed that while Kate looked like she was part of the architecture of the palace, Meghan looked like she was ready to walk into a boardroom in Los Angeles. Behind these public appearances lay a brutal reality of the fashion world, the pecking order. According to palace insiders, there is an unwritten rule that the highest-ranking royals get the first choice of new collections from major designers. As the future Queen, Kate was always given priority for the season's most exclusive pieces. Meghan, being further down the line of succession, was often left with the second-tier options or older collections. This created a profound sense of friction. Sources close to the Sussexes suggest that Meghan felt the system was designed to keep her in the shadows. In response, she began a tactical campaign to outwear the hierarchy. If Kate wore a specific shade of blue, Meghan would appear shortly after in a more daring, fashion-forward version of the same color. It was a silent but powerful message to the household: I can wear your uniform better than the person you are grooming for the throne. As these two style icons continued to cross paths, the atmosphere at palace events grew increasingly tense. The duplication of colors and styles was no accident. It was a calculated attempt to prove who was the true modern face of the monarchy. But as the competition for the spotlight intensified, the question shifted from who looked better to who was actually playing by the rules. The final showdown between Hollywood glamour and royal tradition was looming, and the consequences would change the face of the family forever. The high-stakes gamble of fashion identity and royal lineage has finally reached its ultimate judgment. What began as a $500,000 wardrobe investment in 2018 has evolved into one of the most complex rebranding strategies in modern history. Meghan Markle's journey from a working duchess to a global media mogul was paved with deliberate visual echoes of Princess Diana and a direct aesthetic challenge to the future Queen Catherine. But as the dust settles on this era of the monarchy, the results of this strategy reveal a profound divide between commercial success and public trust. The strategy of rebranding worked with surgical precision in the United States. By positioning herself as a modern-day Diana, a woman persecuted by an ancient institution, Meghan found a massive audience that values individual rebellion over traditional duty. This persona was not just a personal choice, it was an asset that could be monetized. The numbers are staggering. Following their departure from the royal family, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex secured a production deal with Netflix valued at an estimated $100 million. They followed this with a podcast agreement with Spotify worth approximately $20 million. For these global platforms, they weren't just buying content, they were buying the Diana 2.0 brand that Meghan had meticulously crafted through every dress, every gold choker, and every carefully timed public appearance. However, while the American market embraced the drama, the cost at home in the United Kingdom was devastating. In the world of the British monarchy, public approval is the only currency that truly matters, and the statistics tell a story of a rapid and severe decline. In 2018, during the height of the royal wedding fever, Meghan's approval rating in Britain sat at a healthy 55%. People were excited for a new chapter, yet after years of perceived slights against the institution and the constant mirroring of Diana's most painful moments, that number plummeted. By the end of their documentary series and the publication of Harry's memoirs, Meghan's approval rating hit a record low of 22%. One veteran royal correspondent summarized the situation in a poignant reflection, stating that you cannot win a war against an institution while trying to wear its most sacred symbols as a costume. The analyst noted that while Meghan's office was busy trying to outstyle the Princess of Wales, the public began to see the effort as a performance rather than genuine service. A source from within the palace reportedly whispered that the difference between the two women was simple. One was trying to be the story, while the other was trying to support the crown. Ultimately, the veil of fashion has been lifted to reveal a hard truth. Money can buy a replica of Princess Diana's most famous gowns. It can hire the same photographers and book the same international tours to Nigeria or South Africa. It can even secure $100 million contracts with streaming giants. But the natural, effortless aura of Diana and the unwavering, quiet consistency of Catherine are elements that cannot be copied and pasted. The legacy of Meghan Markle's royal years will forever be defined by this tension. She successfully leveraged the monarchy's visual history to build a multi-million-dollar empire in Hollywood. But in doing so, she burned the bridges to the very institution that gave her that platform. As Catherine continues her steady path toward the throne, her popularity rooted in reliability. The world is left to wonder, was the $500,000 wardrobe and the global spotlight worth the loss of a nation's heart? If you want to stay informed on the shifting power dynamics of the British royal family and the secrets behind their public personas, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. We want to hear from you. Has Meghan's style strategy changed how you view her? Or was she right to use every tool at her disposal to forge her own path? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next deep dive. Oh, she will close. Those three chilling words did not originate from a high-stakes Wall Street boardroom or a ruthless real estate negotiation. Instead, they were whispered in the inner circles of Hollywood to describe the calculated rise of a woman who would eventually challenge the traditions of a 1,000-year-old monarchy. It is 8 p.m. on a Tuesday in October 2011. The setting is the exclusive Bungalow No. 3 at the Bel Air Hotel in Los Angeles. This is not a scene of romance, but a theater of cold, hard strategy. Long before the world knew her as the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle was already drafting the blueprints for her future, and it all began with a document so unusual it left legal experts in Beverly Hills completely stunned. Welcome to the Royal Insider Network. Before we dive into the secret files of this Hollywood contract, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update on the hidden lives of the elite. At this very moment in 2011, Meghan was a rising actress on a basic cable drama, but her ambitions were anything but basic. In the quiet corners of that Bel Air bungalow, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of expensive stationery and legal ink. The discussion focused on what insiders call a pregnancy contract. This was not about the joy of starting a family, it was about the clinical management of a brand. Under the guidance of a family law office known for representing B-list celebrities in Beverly Hills, a prenuptial memorandum was being hammered out with her first husband, Trevor Engelson. The terms were specific, demanding, and entirely focused on risk management. The contract reportedly dictated that if the couple were to conceive, Trevor would be legally and financially obligated to fund a high-performance lifestyle to ensure Meghan's physical image remained untarnished. We are talking about a mandatory personal trainer, a dedicated nutritionist, and a full-time elite nanny to handle the heavy lifting of motherhood. In the world of an aspiring star, a child was seen not just as a milestone, but as a potential liability to her on-camera look. This was the moment a marriage was transformed into a corporate merger where love was secondary to the preservation of the asset. If you find these revelations as shocking as we do, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps us bring more of these untold stories to light. As the negotiations continued into the late hours of that October night, witnesses recall the clinical nature of the demands. This was a brand strategy disguised as a domestic agreement. Meghan was reportedly worried that the physical toll of pregnancy would derail her climb to the top. Therefore, the contract served as a financial safety net, ensuring that Trevor would foot the bill for every luxury required to bounce back. It was a level of foresight that left her peers baffled. The tension of those early years is best captured in the way Trevor's own inner circle began to view the relationship. According to those close to the producer, the phrase, "oh, she will close," became a recurring theme whenever Meghan's career moves were discussed. It reflected her reputation for never leaving a deal on the table and always securing the most favorable terms for herself. Trevor reportedly confided in friends that as the years went by, he began to feel less like a partner and more like a stepping stone. He once remarked to a close associate that he felt like he was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe, a mere passenger in a journey where she was the only one behind the steering wheel. For 15 years, Trevor Engelson has maintained a wall of silence, watching from a distance as his former wife ascended to global fame. But silence is not always a sign of peace. Sometimes it is the gathering of energy before a breaking point. The strategic maneuvers that began in bungalow number 3 were just the opening act. The 3 words, "she will close," were not just a comment on a contract, they were a prophecy of how she would handle the House of Windsor itself. What do you think about the idea of a pregnancy contract? Is it smart business or the end of romance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your perspective. But as we look back at the precise dates and the clinical legal terms, a bigger question emerges. What happens when the person who always closes the deal finally meets an institution that refuses to be bought? The quiet accumulation of these grievances has led to a media tipping point that is about to explode, triggered by the very people who were once part of the inner circle. The shadows of 2011 are finally catching up to the present day. The year is 2013, and for those inside the high-pressure bubble of the television industry, the world seemed to be moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But for one man in Los Angeles, the world didn't just slow down, it came to a freezing absolute halt with the arrival of a standard courier envelope. This was not a script or a contract. It was a cold cardboard box delivered by FedEx, and inside were 2 pieces of jewelry that represented a decade of shared dreams. Without a phone call, without a face-to-face meeting, and without so much as a handwritten note, Meghan Markle had returned her engagement and wedding rings via registered mail. It is precisely 10:15 in the morning on a humid day in Toronto. At a local post office frequently used by the cast and crew of the legal drama suits, a clerk scans a package. The tracking identification records a destination, a production office in Los Angeles belonging to Trevor Engelson. In that moment, the digital beep of the scanner signaled more than just a delivery. It signaled the surgical removal of a husband who had become, in the eyes of a rising star, a liability to her new narrative. This move was the ultimate postal slap. In the ruthless world of Hollywood PR, this wasn't just a breakup, it was a total liquidation of a spent asset. By returning the rings through a third-party courier, She ensured there was no room for negotiation, no space for emotional pleas, and absolutely no opportunity for Trevor to affect her burgeoning reputation in the Toronto social scene. She was effectively ghosting her own marriage with the efficiency of a corporate layoff. The legal reality behind this cold delivery was even more calculated. Filed within the sterile halls of the County of Los Angeles Superior Court, the documents tell a story of clinical finality. Case number BD589034 was an uncontested petition for divorce citing irreconcilable differences, but the fine print revealed the true strategy: a complete termination of spousal support and a waiver of rights to any financial gains from their shared creative projects. It was a clean break designed to strip away any legal or financial tether Trevor might have held. As the legal clock began its 6-month countdown toward the final decree, those close to the situation described Trevor's state of mind as one of pure, unadulterated shock. Imagine the scene at his office. The courier drops the package on the desk, the signature is captured on a digital screen, and as the tape is ripped away, the light catches the cold sparkle of diamonds. There was no explanation. One associate recalled Trevor's reaction as a mix of confusion and devastation as he reportedly told a friend that he felt like he had been played like a script that was no longer needed for the next season. He had spent years supporting her, using his connections to get her foot in the door, only to be discarded via a shipping label once the destination had been reached. But as Trevor stared at those rings, a haunting realization began to sink in. Was he truly the lead actor in this story? Or was he merely a temporary investor in a much larger, much more ambitious funding round that he was never meant to be a part of? The rings were back, the contract was closed, but the real game was only just beginning. To understand the mind of the woman who would become a duchess, one must first understand the 3 words that defined her in the eyes of the man who knew her best. Oh, she will close. When Trevor Engelson uttered that sentence, he wasn't talking about a door or a window. He was describing a high-functioning clinical mechanism of human interaction. In the world of elite business, a closer is someone who identifies a target, eliminates obstacles, and secures the signature at any cost. Meghan Markle did not navigate her life through the lens of emotion. She operated with the cold, calculated precision of a seasoned chief executive officer. This is the blueprint of what insiders call the she'll close mechanism, a 3-step PR strategy that transformed a cable television actress into a global icon. The first step is what experts call power target positioning. The activation condition is simple. The target must possess a level of status, wealth, or influence that is significantly higher than her current standing. Whether it was Trevor in the halls of Hollywood or Prince Harry within the 1,000-year-old walls of the monarchy, the approach remained the same. She would enter their safe zone by perfectly synchronizing her interests with theirs. If they cared about charity, she became a humanitarian. If they cared about privacy, she became a recluse. It was a mirror effect designed to make the target feel they had finally found their soulmate, when in reality, they had found a mirror reflecting their own desires back at them. The second step is the media and legal bind. Once the relationship reaches a fever pitch, a public commitment is triggered to trap the partner into a moral obligation. Think back to November of 2016. The moment Kensington Palace issued that unprecedented official statement confirming the relationship and condemning the press, the deal was effectively closed. Harry was no longer just a romantic partner. He was now a legal and moral shield. By binding herself to the institution's authority, she gained access to a global PR machine that most celebrities would spend 10 lifetimes trying to build. But the most fascinating part of the mechanism is the third step, the strategic exit. This is triggered the moment the current platform reaches its benefit saturation point, the point where the institution can no longer offer more growth, or when a systemic crisis appears. Instead of a quiet departure, she triggers a victimhood narrative. This serves as the ultimate leverage, allowing her to walk away from traditional duties while carrying the public's sympathy. It is a pivot designed to convert royal prestige into cold, hard commercial assets, such as 9-figure deals with streaming giants like Netflix and Spotify. When you look at the timeline from the bungalows of Los Angeles to the stone corridors of Windsor, the pattern is undeniable. It was never about the person, it was about the contract. If a prince of the realm was simply the most successful closing in a long line of acquisitions, one has to wonder, what is the next clause in the agreement? If the goal was always the ultimate global brand. Has she finally reached the top? Or is there one more deal left to sign? In the quiet, leather-bound library of a sprawling mansion in Montecito, the air is often heavy with the weight of unsaid words. It is January 2023. Prince Harry sits alone, surrounded by the global fallout of his memoir, Spare. While the world devours his every confession, a haunting contrast begins to emerge between the two men who have occupied the most central roles in Meghan Markle's life. On one side, there is the prince who has laid bare every grievance and every private conversation for a 9-figure publishing deal. On the other, there is Trevor Engelson, the man who was once closed by a FedEx package and who has maintained a wall of absolute impenetrable silence for over a decade. This is the ultimate study in power. In the high-stakes world of crisis management, there is a golden rule. The one who speaks the most is often the most vulnerable, while the one who remains silent holds the true balance of power. Trevor's refusal to engage with the media hasn't just preserved his dignity, it has created a void that Harry's own words are now struggling to fill. As Harry reportedly pored over translated messages from international media forums, the reality of his situation began to sink in. He was trapped by his own narrative. Behind the scenes at Archewell Audio and within the offices of Penguin Random House, the legal machinery was working overtime. The non-disclosure agreements, the NDAs attached to the publication of Spare, were designed to protect the brand, but they also created a cage. Harry was bound by a contractual obligation to be authentic, but that very authenticity was stripping away the royal mystique of never complain, never explain. Every time Harry reacted to a leak or a tabloid headline, he was inadvertently lowering the status of the House of Sussex to that of a second-rate tabloid scandal. Insiders close to this Montecito circle describe a growing tension during those late-night sessions in the library. Harry reportedly questioned his advisors, asking why the ghosts of the past seemed to have more influence than his own published truth. He was witnessing the strategic brilliance of silence. By saying nothing, Trevor Engelson had become a figure of mystery and respect in Hollywood circles, a man who moved on and found immense success, while Harry seemed stuck in a loop of reliving his wife's previous chapters. The legal consequences of this contrast are stark. Any public reaction from Harry toward the rumors involving Trevor would violate the core principles of royal protocol and expose him to even more scrutiny. He was effectively silenced by his own fame. As the pressure mounted, Harry reportedly took a desperate step. He requested his legal and advisory teams to conduct a deep-dive investigation into the current media environment. He wanted to know if there was a hidden hand orchestrating the resurgence of stories about Meghan's past. Specifically, he asked if there was any evidence that Trevor Engelson was secretly funding or supporting the smear campaigns that seemed to plague their brand. He expected to find a paper trail of revenge, but when the report finally landed on his desk, the answer from his legal team left him completely stunned. It wasn't a conspiracy of the past that was haunting him. It was the clinical precision of the close that was still in effect. But what exactly did those documents reveal? If Trevor wasn't the one pulling the strings, then who was? The answer would change everything. Harry thought he knew about the contract he had signed for his new life. It is a crisp evening in May 2019. While the world's media is fixated on the arrival of a new royal baby in the United Kingdom, a very different kind of celebration is taking place in a private high-security estate in Montecito, California. The guest list is small, the security is elite, and the silence is absolute. This is the wedding of Trevor Engelson and Tracy Kurland. The location is more than just a beautiful backdrop, it is a geographic statement of victory. This private sanctuary sits less than 15 minutes away from the mansion that would eventually become the home of Harry and Meghan. In the high-stakes world of Hollywood and global prestige, revenge is rarely served through a microphone. The most devastating form of retaliation is living a life so superior, so stable, and so wealthy that the person who discarded you becomes irrelevant. For years, the public narrative painted Trevor as the man who was left behind, the producer who couldn't keep up with a rising star. But the reality, hidden within legal filings and financial ledgers, tells a completely different story. The authority of this new chapter is backed by the kind of numbers that do not need a publicity department to explain them. Documents related to the Kurland family estate, the legacy of the late billionaire Herbert Kurland, reveal a level of financial security that dwarfs the commercial deals of the Sussexes. According to records filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission and various trust fund disclosures, the net worth associated with Trevor's new life is estimated to be in the hundreds of millions. While Harry and Meghan are bound by contracts with Netflix and Spotify, forced to constantly produce content and keep their names in the headlines to maintain their commercial value. Trevor has achieved the ultimate elite status, stealth wealth. He does not need to sell his story. He does not need to film a docuseries or write a memoir to pay for his security detail. He has moved into a tier of global power where the goal is to be invisible because your influence is already absolute. Friends who attended the Montecito ceremony recall a man who looked entirely at peace, a stark contrast to the embattled figure often portrayed in the media. One witness described the atmosphere as the ultimate closing of a chapter. Trevor didn't need to win a PR war because he had already won the war of reality. He had secured a partner who brought not just immense wealth, but a level of discretion that is the true currency of the world's most powerful families. This is the psychological haunting that now hangs over the Montecito neighborhood. On one side of the valley, a couple must navigate the constant pressure of public opinion and the need for the next big deal. On the other side, just a few miles away, is the man who was once closed by a FedEx package, now living a life of quiet, untouchable abundance. Meghan Markle has spent her life chasing a seat at the highest table, believing that fame was the key to power. But as she looks across the hills of Montecito, she is faced with a chilling realization. The man she left behind has acquired the one thing that still eludes her, the absolute freedom of the shadows. If the close was meant to be the end of Trevor's story, why does it feel like he is the only one who truly walked away with the prize? And in this game of high society chess, what happens when the person you thought you defeated is the one who ultimately holds the board? The year is 2037. In a quiet room, a young man named Archie Harrison, Mountbatten, Windsor, reaches his 18th birthday. Like any other young adult in the digital age, he will eventually look back at the archives of his family's history. But for Archie, the search results won't just be childhood photos. They will be a mountain of high-stakes legal documents, PR strategies, and a haunting three-word phrase that has followed his mother's name for decades: she will close. This is the ultimate psychological shadow, the moment a child's legacy becomes inextricably linked to a corporate-style closing of a royal bloodline. The reality of this situation is anchored in the sterile, silent halls of the General Register Office in the United Kingdom. Here, the legal papers and birth certificates of the House of Windsor are kept under lock and key. These documents prove Archie's lineage, but they cannot protect him from the digital inheritance left by his parents. For Prince Harry, this is the realization of his greatest nightmare. He has spent years fighting to protect his children from the labels and labels of the media. Yet the very strategy used to secure their future in Montecito may have branded them forever as the ultimate assets in a global media deal. As we look at the potential future, three distinct scenarios emerge. In the most extreme case, the pressure of this closing narrative could lead to a total media blackout within the home. Harry, obsessed with privacy, might impose a communications ban so strict that it creates an irreparable fracture between him and Meghan, whose career relies on public visibility. This would be the break point, where the business of the marriage finally outweighs the emotion of the bond. However, the most realistic scenario is much more subtle and perhaps more damaging. It is the slow erosion of a brand. In this version of the future, the Sussexes continue their current path, but every charitable move, every Netflix project, and every public appearance is viewed by the public through the skeptical lens of Trevor Engelson's warning. People no longer see a duchess, they see a closer. They no longer see a prince, they see a target who was successfully acquired. This word curse becomes a permanent crack in their public image that no amount of expensive PR can repair. There is, of course, the possibility of a proactive strike. Meghan, ever the strategist, could attempt to reclaim the word close. In a future blockbuster interview, she might redefine the term as a symbol of female empowerment, the story of a woman who knew her value and refused to leave the table until she got the best deal for her family. But even then, can a mother's ambition ever be separated from the legacy she leaves for her son? The 15 years of silence from Trevor Engelson have created the most dangerous weapon in the world of reputation: doubt. It is a quiet, persistent suspicion that lingers long after the cameras are turned off and the mansion doors are closed. Behind those doors in Montecito, does Harry ever look across the room and wonder if he is truly the partner in this journey, or if he was simply the most prestigious contract his wife ever signed? If you have stayed with us through this deep dive into the hidden contracts of the elite, we want to hear from you. Do you think a person can ever truly escape their reputation as a closer, or is the past always part of the future? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you found this analysis compelling, please hit the like button and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. Your support allows us to continue uncovering the stories that the world's most powerful institutions would rather keep in the shadows. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned as we continue to track the final moves in this global game of chess.
Midnight in Montecito, California, January 2026. Inside the sprawling $14 million mansion, the silence is deafening, broken only by the frantic tapping on a laptop screen and the rhythmic ticking of a clock that sounds more like a countdown to a financial explosion. Meghan Markle, once the golden girl of the streaming era, is staring at a digital ledger that spells absolute ruin. The facade of the self-made billionaire is crumbling. The bombshell dropped just days ago when Netflix, the giant that once fueled their American dream, quietly severed all ties and returned every single pallet of unsold inventory. Before we dive deeper into this royal financial meltdown, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the Royal Insider Network, and drop a comment below telling us, do you think the Duchess can ever recover from this? Your support keeps our investigative reporting alive. The scale of the disaster is staggering. Sitting in cold storage right now is £33,700,000 worth of fruit preserves and matcha tea powder. This is not just a slow start for a brand. It is a graveyard of ambition. For months, the public was told that American Riviera Orchard was the next global lifestyle empire. But the reality behind the curtain is humiliating. Internal documents leaked following a 48-hour system glitch revealed a truth Meghan desperately tried to hide. She was selling only 25 jars of jam and 11 canisters of decorative powder per day. Imagine the scene in that high-tech kitchen as the realization set in. Sources close to the household describe a duchess in a state of high-functioning panic, reportedly telling her legal team that the numbers simply do not add up and that someone must be held accountable for the lack of buzz. But the market has spoken. With the expiration dates on that mountain of jam ticking toward June and September 2026, the brand is staring down a net loss of $5 million. To save every penny possible, the Duchess has been forced into a move that signals the ultimate professional downgrade. She has reportedly scrapped her high-end bespoke operating system, moving the entire business to a basic $29 per month Shopify plan, the kind used by hobbyists and small-time crafters. From the heights of global royalty to a $29 monthly subscription, the fall from grace is nearly complete. As the walls close in, those within the Montecito inner circle have overheard a chilling shift in strategy. Meghan was heard remarking to an associate that the brand is no longer enough to sustain their lifestyle, and that a more radical approach is required. She reportedly argued that since the American public has grown weary of the Sussex brand, they must look back to the very institution they spent years criticizing. The clock is ticking toward the summer of 2026, and the $5 million debt is a shadow that won't go away. The Duchess knows that her only remaining high-value asset isn't a jar of jam or a packet of tea, it is her connection to the British Crown. She has realized that the only way to save her crumbling business empire is to launch a desperate, high-stakes campaign. The plan is becoming clear: a return to the United Kingdom, using her 2 children as the ultimate emotional leverage against the royal family. If you are finding this investigation into the Sussex finances shocking, please take a moment to subscribe to the Royal Insider Network and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on this developing story. The mission is no longer about building a lifestyle brand. It is about survival. As the midnight oil burns in Montecito, the self-made dream has been replaced by a cold, calculated decision to head back to London. The jam bomb is about to go off, and Meghan Markle is ready to play her final, most controversial card. By June 2026, the atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace had shifted from one of quiet tradition to a state of high-alert anxiety. At 77 years old, King Charles III appeared visibly thinned and exhausted, the physical toll of his ongoing cancer treatments etched into his features. Yet, despite the warnings from his most senior constitutional advisors, the king's heart had softened, driven by a deep, aching desire to see his youngest grandchildren. He made a move that many in his inner circle considered a catastrophic error in judgment. In the seclusion of his private study, the king reportedly bypassed protocol to sign a secret executive order, granting the Sussexes a strictly controlled 5-day window to return to the United Kingdom this coming July. However, if the king thought this would bring peace, he was gravely mistaken. The Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine, viewed this compromise as a betrayal of the stability they had fought so hard to maintain. The tension finally boiled over during the Trooping the Colour ceremony in June. In a moment that left royal commentators breathless, William and Kate delivered a chilling public response. Right in the middle of the solemn military display, the couple abruptly gathered their children and departed the event hours ahead of schedule. It was a silent, powerful U-turn at dawn, a visual message to the world, and the king himself, that they would not stand shoulder to shoulder with the Sussexes, nor would they endorse the king's decision. While the palace was reeling from this internal fracture, a document arrived from Montecito that turned a family negotiation into a diplomatic hostage situation. Meghan Markle did not just accept the invitation, she issued a 12-point ultimatum that left court officials stunned. The Duchess reportedly made it clear that Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet would not even board a plane unless her demands were met in full. Topping the list was a demand for residency at Apartment 1A in Kensington Palace, the prestigious former home of William and Kate. She didn't stop there. The ultimatum required the immediate assignment of 2 elite senior nannies from the Norland School, a private high-fashion stylist on 24-hour call, and a full armoured police escort to meet them directly on the tarmac at Heathrow. Sources close to the negotiations describe Meghan's stance as uncompromising. She is said to have told palace intermediaries that her children are not pawns to be moved at the king's whim, and that if the crown wanted the public image of a reunited family, they would have to pay for it in both status and security. She reportedly stated that she would not allow her family to be treated as secondary guests in a house they are legally entitled to occupy. The king has opened the gates, but the Prince of Wales has locked the doors. As the July deadline looms, the question remains: will the king cave to these extraordinary demands just to see his grandchildren, or will William's defiance force a final, permanent break between the two brothers? The royal world is holding its breath as the clock ticks toward a return that could either heal the monarchy or destroy it forever. Deep within the ancient, stone-walled security chambers of Windsor Castle, the air is thick with the scent of beeswax and the heavy silence of an impending storm. The flickering candlelight reflects off the gold-rimmed edges of top-secret folders, but the atmosphere is anything but celebratory. King Charles III, realizing he has been caught in a sophisticated media trap set by his own daughter-in-law, has reached his breaking point. Physically drained and emotionally battered, the king has made an unprecedented constitutional move. He has officially handed the entire Sussex problem to the one person the world knows will never blink: his sister, Princess Anne. With the stroke of a pen, the king authorized what is being whispered about in the corridors of power as Operation Lockdown. This isn't just a change in strategy, it is a total administrative iron curtain. The first order of business was swift and brutal. 100% of the Sussex files, every letter, every legal request, and every financial demand was physically seized from the king's private office. Princess Anne reportedly oversaw the removal herself, ensuring that no further emotional pleas could reach the king's desk. But the true genius of Anne's Operation Lockdown lies in its psychological warfare. In a move designed to deliver the ultimate message of hierarchy, the Princess Royal ordered that all future correspondence arriving from California be redirected. Meghan Markle, who once used global television to air grievances against the royal family, now finds her path blocked by a gatekeeper she never expected. Every demand for security, every request for a stylist, and every ultimatum regarding the children must now be submitted to, and approved by, the office of the Princess of Wales, Catherine. Sources within the palace describe Princess Anne as being clinical in her execution. She was overheard telling a senior aide that if the Duchess wants to issue demands, she can stand in line and apply for permission from the very sister-in-law she once targeted. The message is clear. The era of back-channel negotiations and private royal favors is over. The administrative Iron Curtain has fallen, and the gatekeeper is the woman Meghan has spent years trying to overshadow. As part of this new blood member statute, Prince Harry's standing has been systematically dismantled. Behind the scenes, he has been stripped of all representative authority and downgraded to the lowest possible civilian status within the royal household's administrative records. He is no longer a prince in exile with a direct line to the throne. In the eyes of Operation Lockdown, he is simply a private citizen whose past choices have rendered him a security liability. The stage is now set for a confrontation that no one in Montecito could have predicted. While Meghan prepares her 12-point ultimatum and her demands for a royal lifestyle, she remains unaware that her letters are sitting in an inbox managed by the very woman she tried to break. The Iron Lady of the Windsors has taken control, and the Sussex bomb has just been diffused by a wall of royal protocol. But how will the Duchess react when she realizes her only way back to the palace is through the office of the Princess of Wales? The power dynamic has shifted, and the true battle for the future of the monarchy is only just beginning. Inside the high-tech command center of the royal media headquarters, the monitors are glowing with data that the public was never meant to see. Princess Anne has just authorized the release of a black file, a detailed record of every breach of the Megxit agreement since the couple landed in California. The most damaging piece of evidence? A calculated move involving the Archwell Foundation and a high-stakes international conflict. It has been revealed that the Sussexes team intentionally shared a post from the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, Mikhailo Fedorov, while prominently featuring the banned title Your Royal Highness. This wasn't an administrative error. It was a strategic attempt to leverage their royal status for international clout, a direct and brazen violation of the terms they signed when they left the United Kingdom. But the intelligence report goes deeper, revealing a plot so cynical it has reportedly left King Charles in a state of profound shock. As the Duchess prepared for her highly publicized return to London, she wasn't just packing designer clothes. Royal intelligence intercepted a plan for Meghan to bring a curated selection of her brand's jams and candles as gifts for the king. The objective was never about a family reconciliation. The true goal was to capture a single, clandestine photograph or a leaked description of a royal endorsement to revive her failing business. With website traffic for American Riviera Orchard plummeting by 24% in a single quarter, Meghan was desperate for a money shot to save her brand from total collapse. Princess Anne's response has been described as a masterclass in clinical defense. She has ordered the deployment of 3 independent high-security servers specifically to manage this 5-day visit. The rules are non-negotiable. The Sussexes must surrender all personal electronic devices upon entry and use only palace-issued equipment. Every single word spoken, every interaction, and every whisper will be monitored by independent observers and stored on those 3 secure servers. A source within the security detail overheard Princess Anne informing the household staff that the palace would no longer be a film set for California-based content creators. This measure is a direct strike against what insiders are calling the Spare 3 project. The royal family is well aware that Harry and Meghan's primary currency is their access to the inner sanctum of the monarchy. By recording everything on their own terms, The palace is effectively freezing any potential raw material that Harry could use for a third volume of his memoirs. The clinical precision of this operation has turned the Sussexes' return into a digital prison. No personal microphones, no hidden cameras, and zero opportunity to spin a private conversation into a multi-million-dollar book deal. The Iron Lady of the Windsors has ensured that if the Sussexes want to speak, the Crown will have the only record of what was actually said. As the countdown to their arrival begins, the world is wondering, will Harry and Meghan still come if they know they are being watched by the very family they intended to exploit? The Game of Shadows is reaching its climax, and for the first time, the palace is 3 steps ahead. July 2026. The wheels of a private Gulfstream jet touch down at a secluded terminal of London Heathrow Airport, but the roar of the engines is met with a chilling, eerie silence. There are no flashing bulbs from the Royal Press Corps. There is no red carpet unfurled on the tarmac. There isn't even a mid-level equerry waiting with a bouquet of flowers. For the first time in their lives, Harry and Meghan have arrived in the United Kingdom to a total and absolute visual blackout. Princess Anne's Operation Lockdown has been executed with surgical precision. The palace has effectively issued a D notice to the media, ensuring that not a single official image of the Sussexes' return would be broadcast to the world. As the couple stepped off the plane, clutching the hands of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, the reality of their new status hit like a wall of cold North Sea fog. They weren't being treated as returning royals. They were being treated as private citizens of no particular importance. The gamble to use the children as emotional bait to force the king into a public reconciliation had failed before they even cleared customs. The humiliation, however, was only beginning. As they were driven in a nondescript, privately hired SUV through the streets of London, the Duchess looked out the window to see a landscape she no longer recognized. On the digital billboards across the Victoria Underground station, and on the front pages of the tabloids stacked at every newsstand, a devastating comparison was being made. The headlines didn't scream "Welcome home." Instead, they mocked her. The figure £22 per month was plastered everywhere in bold, black ink. The British public was being fed a play-by-play of her financial downfall, contrasting her demands for royal luxury with the reality of her £22 a month Shopify subscription. One headline in a major daily newspaper read, "A £22 Duchess with a £33 million debt." The narrative had shifted from royal drama to a cautionary tale of a failed business empire. But the most significant blow was delivered by the Home Office. Meghan had spent weeks demanding armed police protection, arguing that the United Kingdom was too hostile for her family to visit without it. She had expected the king to cave and use his private wealth to provide a ring of steel around them. Instead, the palace issued a statement that was as brief as it was brutal. The security budget for this unofficial family visit was zero. The Sussexes were forced to dig into their own rapidly depleting bank accounts to hire a team of private bodyguards, men who had no legal authority to carry firearms or bypass traffic in the city. The sight of the Duke and Duchess stuck in standard London traffic, surrounded by a few hired guards in a rental car, sent a wave of fury through the British public. The sentiment on social media and in the streets was one of deep suspicion. People began to ask the one question Meghan dreaded most. If the Duchess truly believes this country is so dangerous and hostile that she needs an army to protect her, why on earth would she bring her 2 small children here just to settle a business debt? The hostile narrative she had built for years was crumbling under the weight of her own actions. She had brought Archie and Lilibet into a lion's den not for family love, but as leverage for a brand that was currently worth less than the paper its labels were printed on. As they reached the outskirts of a quiet, undisclosed location far from the glamour of Kensington, the realization began to set in. The gates of the palace were shut, the cameras were turned off, and the British public was no longer buying the story. The Duchess was back in England, but for the first time, she was completely and utterly alone. What happens when the world's most famous victims realize that no one is watching anymore? The 5-day window has slammed shut. and the silence from within the palace walls is the loudest message the Sussexes have ever received. As the sun sets over the Grand Hall of Buckingham Palace in late July 2026, the atmosphere is no longer one of crisis, but of cold, calculated resolution. The experiment of soft diplomacy is over. Prince William, standing as the de facto leader of the monarchy while his father continues his recovery, has chosen this moment to deliver the final, structural blow to his brother's royal identity. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the Commonwealth, the Prince of Wales has authorised the release of the new Working Royal Organisational Chart. This is not just a piece of paper, it is a death warrant for the Sussexes' royal relevance. Prince Harry's name, once a central pillar of the Fab Four, has been systematically erased. In his place, a new generation has been elevated faces that represent discipline, duty, and a clean break from the tabloid scandals of the last decade. James, the young Duke of Wessex, has been moved into a frontline role alongside Peter Phillips and his wife, Harriet Spurling. This Gen Z shift is a deliberate masterstroke by William. By promoting these disciplined, low-drama members of the family, William has signaled that the future of the House of Windsor does not require Hollywood star power, it requires reliable service. The public response has been overwhelming. According to the latest internal polling, Prince William has secured a staggering 82% approval rating. The British public has rallied behind his iron discipline, praising him for protecting the ailing king from the emotional exhaustion of the California drama. Sources inside the palace report that William was overheard telling a senior diplomat that the monarchy is a 1,000-year institution that cannot be traded for a streaming contract or a jar of marmalade. He reportedly added that the era of half in, half out is not just over, it is forgotten. As Harry and Meghan prepared for their silent departure back to California, there were no final hugs, no private tea with the king, and no photos for their documentary. The Operation Lockdown, orchestrated by Princess Anne, remained in effect until the moment their car reached the airport gates. The Duchess's 12-point ultimatum was left unanswered, gathering dust in an inbox. The mountain of £33 million worth of tea and jam remains sitting in a warehouse, its expiration date ticking closer every second, while the royal brand it was supposed to lean on has officially moved on without them. The image that will define this era is not one of a family reunion, but of Prince William stepping into the light of the Grand Hall, his silhouette steady and resolute. He has chosen survival. He has chosen the crown over the brother who sought to commercialize it. The administrative Iron Curtain has not only fallen, it has been reinforced with steel. As the Sussexes return to Montecito to face a $5 million debt and a collapsing business empire, the British monarchy looks forward to a new dawn. The jam bomb failed to detonate, the emotional blackmail was neutralized, and the order of succession is more secure than it has been in years. The saga of the two brothers has reached its final chapter, and the verdict is clear. Duty always outlasts the spotlight. If you found this deep dive into the royal power shift fascinating, don't let the story end here. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the Royal Insider Network, and tap that notification bell so you never miss a beat of this unfolding history. What do you think of William's iron discipline? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. Thank you for watching. The gold-nibbed pen of King Charles III paused for a fraction of a second before delivering a final, decisive stroke across a heavy parchment. It is mid-June, 2026. Inside the high-security sovereign's room at Buckingham Palace, the air is thick with the weight of 1,000 years of tradition being rewritten in a single moment. With this signature, the king has finalized a secret constitutional decree that effectively severs the last formal ties between the British Crown and the children of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Archie and Lilibet, once the 6th and 7th in line to the most famous throne on earth, have been officially removed from the line of succession. This is not just a family dispute. It is a clinical, legal execution of royal authority. As the encrypted telegram traveled across the Atlantic to the high-tech headquarters of Archwell in California, The ripple effect was instantaneous. Prince Harry reportedly stared at the screen of his secure device, his face turning an ashen grey. Witnesses close to the couple describe a scene of absolute silence as the realization set in. The ultimate birthright of his children had been deleted from the official record. Behind the sterile language of administrative paperwork lay a ruthless strike against the very foundation of the Sussex brand. Welcome to the Royal Insider Network. If you want to stay ahead of every major revelation from the palace, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Don't forget to like this video and tell us in the comments. Do you think a king should have the power to remove his own grandchildren from the line of succession? The impact of this decree is measured in more than just titles. It is a $150 million earthquake. The global standing of Harry and Meghan has always been anchored by their proximity to the throne. Their massive media contracts, their speaking engagements, and their commercial appeal are all fueled by the bloodline of their children. By removing Archie and Lilibet from positions 6 and 7, the king has stripped away the primary source of their brand's legitimacy. In the eyes of major American streaming giants and high-level investors, the Sussexes have transitioned from royal to relevant, a downgrade that could cost them their financial future. In the private offices of Archwell between May and June of 2026, the tension reached a breaking point. Sources say Meghan's reaction was one of calculated fury, while Harry remained in a state of profound shock. He reportedly turned to his wife and whispered that he never believed his father would actually go through with it. He told her that he felt the family had finally drawn a line in the sand that could never be crossed again. Meghan, ever the strategist, is said to have responded by telling him that this was no longer a family matter, it was now a declaration of war on their children's legacy. The decree is set to take full legal effect by next month, leaving the couple with a rapidly closing window to respond. Every corporate board and legal team associated with the Sussexes is currently reviewing the fine print of their existing deals. Without the official status of the line of succession, the royal in their identity becomes a hollow shell. The power of the throne has been used to redraw the boundaries between national duty and the privileges of blood, leaving Harry and Meghan standing on the outside of a fence they once thought was unbreakable. As the deadline for the public announcement approaches, the question in every boardroom from London to Los Angeles is the same. What is a prince without a path to the throne, and what is a brand without its crown? The silence from Montecito is deafening, but beneath the surface, the counter-strategy is already being drafted. The king has made his move, but in this game of global influence, the next move may be the most dangerous one of all. To understand the seismic shift of June, we must travel back 4 months to a freezing morning in February 2026. The setting is St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, a place where the echoes of kings and queens past seem to vibrate through the ancient stone. This was the solemn memorial service for the late Queen Elizabeth II, an event designed to project the unity and continuity of the monarchy. But while the world's cameras were focused on the front pews, a quiet, almost surgical experiment was being conducted by the palace's top constitutional advisors. Placed in a position of high visibility, directly adjacent to the Prince and Princess of Wales, were 2 ornate, velvet-lined chairs. To the casual observer, they looked like simple, empty seats, but as the cameras zoomed in, the tiny, hand-calligraphed cards resting on the seats became visible. They bore the names Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. This was not a mistake. It was a high-stakes institutional stress test orchestrated by the men in grey suits at the heart of the palace. By placing those chairs there, the king's advisors were creating a visual record of a profound reality. Throughout the entire 2-hour service, those seats remained cold and vacant. The physical absence of the children amidst the most sacred rituals of the crown served as a silent, powerful indictment. It was the moment the theoretical became undeniable. The Sussex heirs were no longer part of the fabric of the British state. The statistics supporting this move were compiled in a dossier by the Cabinet Office, and they were as cold as the February air. The first number was 5,000. the exact mileage separating the children from the culture and traditions they were born to represent. The second number, and perhaps the most devastating, was 0. That is the official count of hours Archie and Lilibet have spent in public service or within the royal ecosystem since their departure. To the advisors watching from the shadows of the chapel, these were not just children, they were ghosts in the lineage. A senior palace official reportedly whispered to the king during a private briefing shortly after the service, stating that one cannot inherit the soul of a nation from 5,000 miles away. The advisor is said to have remarked that a title without presence is merely a souvenir, and the crown is not in the business of manufacturing souvenirs. This observation hit home. As King Charles looked at those 2 empty chairs during the closing hymn, his expression was described by insiders as one of painful clarity. He wasn't looking at his grandchildren. He was looking at a systemic vulnerability. The empty chair incident of February was the final piece of evidence needed to justify the decree of June. It proved that the children were being raised in a world entirely alienated from the responsibilities of the throne. While they lived a life of California sunshine and private security, the machinery of the monarchy was moving forward without them. The gap between the 5,000 miles of distance and the 0 hours of duty had become a canyon that no amount of royal blood could bridge. But as the shadows lengthened over Windsor that day, a new question began to circulate among the elite. If the children are no longer in the line of succession, what happens to the massive security costs and the diplomatic protections that their parents still claim? The empty chairs were just the beginning of a much larger, much more dangerous cleaning of the royal house, one that would soon lead to a confrontation that no one in Montecito saw coming. April 2026. The gates of Windsor Castle swing open for a black SUV carrying a single passenger who has arrived under the cover of a media blackout. Prince Harry has flown across the Atlantic for a secret 5-day summit, a last-ditch effort to save the future of his children. But instead of the warm, familial reconciliation he hoped for, he finds himself in a high-security stateroom, sitting across from a father who looks more like a monarch than a parent. The air is thick with the scent of old wood and the cold reality of constitutional law. For 5 days, the walls of Windsor witness a brutal clash of ideologies. According to witnesses close to the household, Harry's plea was emotional and raw. He reportedly looked his father in the eye and demanded that Charles treat Archie and Lilibet with the affection of a grandfather rather than the cold calculation of a sovereign. He told the king that he was hiding behind ancient rules to avoid his responsibilities to his own blood. Harry's voice reportedly echoed through the room as he insisted that his children deserved the same protection and status as their cousins. But the king's response was a masterclass in weary resolve. Charles reportedly sighed, looking at his son with a mixture of pity and finality, before stating that the crown has no heart, it only has a duty to the people who fund it. He told Harry that a family is private, but a monarchy is a public trust, and those who do not serve the trust cannot expect to be rewarded by it. Seeing that the emotional deadlock was unbreakable, King Charles did something that sent a shiver through the Montecito legal team. He stood up and handed a thick, leather-bound folder to his sister, Princess Anne. With that single gesture, he transferred the entire crisis management power to the woman known as the Iron Lady of the Royals. Princess Anne did not come to the table to negotiate. She came to execute a sentence. She placed a document on the oak table that was 150 pages thick. This was the Constitutional Memorandum, a legal fortress built by the nation's top constitutional lawyers over the previous year. It was a surgical blueprint for the complete removal of the Sussex descendants from the royal fabric. 150 pages of legal clauses that systematically closed every loophole Harry's team had hoped to exploit. The financial reality Anne presented was even more devastating. She informed Harry that his financial status was being reset to a level of $0 in official support. There would be no security funding, no housing allowance, and no access to the sovereign grant. But the ultimate psychological blow came when Anne revealed the new chain of command. From that moment forward, any and all communication regarding Archie and Lilibet, whether it be about security, travel, or titles, was no longer to be directed to the king or the queen. Instead, all requests were redirected to the office of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. For Harry, this was the ultimate humiliation. To reach his father, he would now have to go through the woman with whom the relationship had become most strained. It was a tactical maneuver designed to show Harry that he was no longer an insider. He was a petitioner. As Harry prepared to leave Windsor, defeated and empty-handed, Princess Anne reportedly delivered one final, chilling remark. She told him that a title is a loan from the state, and the state had decided to call in its debt. The 5-day summit ended not with a hug, but with the sound of a heavy door closing. Harry left for the airport, realizing that the grandfather he was looking for was gone, replaced by an institution that had finally decided to fight back. But as the 150-page memorandum began to circulate among the elite circles of London, a new question began to surface. If Catherine now held the keys to Archie and Lilibet's future, what was she planning to do with them? The middle of June, 2026. In a dimly lit media suite in California, the air is thick with the scent of high-end coffee and the electric hum of high-stakes strategy. On a large monitor, a 14-page press release sits ready for immediate distribution. This is not a standard statement. It is a document filled with rhetorical gunpowder, designed to accuse the British monarchy of systemic discrimination and a personal vendetta against 2 innocent children. The send button is a single heartbeat away from being pressed, a move that would effectively declare a permanent state of war between the House of Sussex and the Crown. But 5,000 miles away, at Adelaide Cottage in Windsor, the Princess of Wales is watching the clock. She knows the timeline of the California media cycle. In a move that bypasses her own communications team, her advisors, and even the office of Prince William, Catherine picks up a secure, encrypted phone. She does not call a lawyer. She does not call a publicist. She dials Harry's private number directly. The call connects at precisely midnight, London time. It would last for exactly 10 minutes. 10 minutes that would change the trajectory of the entire crisis. For the first time in years, the voice Harry hears isn't a formal greeting from a royal representative. It is Catherine. She doesn't waste time on pleasantries or emotional appeals for family unity. According to insiders familiar with the exchange, her tone was clinical, steady, and hauntingly cold. She didn't try to defend the king's decree to remove Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession. Instead, she pivoted to a much more terrifying reality. She reportedly asked Harry to imagine the year 2040. She asked him to visualize Archie and Lilibet as young adults, walking into a world where their names are synonymous with a scorched earth legal battle. Harry, she reportedly whispered, her voice carrying the weight of a mother who understands the burden of the crown. When your children are 25 and they type their names into a global search engine, do you want the first results to be a 14-page declaration of war written by their own parents? She challenged him to look past the next 24 hours of headlines and consider the digital legacy he was creating. She told him that the king's decree was a matter of law, but the 14-page press release was a matter of character. Catherine argued that by labeling his children as victims in a global press release, he was effectively branding them for life, stripping them of the very privacy he claimed to be fighting for. She told him, "You are not protecting their titles, Harry. You are documenting their trauma for the world to consume forever." The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. For 10 minutes, the Princess of Wales laid out the psychological cost of the Sussexes' planned counter-offensive. She didn't use the power of the throne. She used the power of the future. She reminded him that once those 14 pages were released, Archie and Lilibet would no longer be children in the eyes of the world. They would be political ammunition. When the call ended, Harry reportedly sat in the dark of the media room, the glow of the monitor reflecting in his eyes. The send button remained unpressed. Meghan, entering the room moments later, reportedly found a husband who had been shaken to his core by a 10-minute conversation. The 14-page document was shelved, but it was not deleted. Catherine's intervention was a masterstroke of psychological foresight. She had managed to halt a media nuclear bomb by appealing to the one thing Harry fears more than the palace, the judgment of his own children in the future. But the question remains, if those 14 pages contain the truth Meghan is so desperate to tell, how long can a 10-minute phone call keep them hidden? And what exactly was written in those pages that Catherine was so terrified the world would see? Today is June 27th, 2026. At 6 a.m., at Victoria Station in London, the morning rush hour did not begin with the usual hurried pace of commuters. Instead, it began with a collective, stunned silence. As the first bundles of the morning newspapers were dropped at the stands, a single, three-word headline in massive ink-black letters dominated the front pages of every Fleet Street daily. The names removed. The secret was out. The constitutional decree signed by King Charles had leaked weeks ahead of schedule, sending a shockwave through the national consciousness that hasn't been felt in decades. By 8 a.m., national television broadcasts were being interrupted every 15 minutes as constitutional experts were rushed into studios to explain the impossible. The legal line of succession, a document once thought to be written in stone, had been edited. Archie and Lilibet, the children of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, were officially no longer heirs to the British throne. The data pouring in from across the country was even more shocking than the headline itself. A Snap poll conducted in the wake of the leak revealed a staggering 82% approval rating for the King's decision. The British public, weary of years of transatlantic drama, had signalled their overwhelming support for William and Catherine's vision of a disciplined monarchy, one where titles are not a birthright of blood, but a reward for national service. But the real drama was unfolding on the streets of London. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, was scheduled for a long-planned public engagement at a youth centre. As he stepped out of his vehicle, he was met not just by the usual cheers, but by a frantic wall of international reporters. The air was thick with tension. One veteran royal correspondent stepped forward and shouted above the noise, asking if the prince supported his father's decision to strip his own nephew and niece of their royal status. The reporter's voice rang out, "Your Highness, is this a betrayal of your own flesh and blood?" William stopped. He didn't look away, and he didn't retreat. He looked directly at the cameras, his expression a mask of calm, professional resolve. He gave a 5-word response that had clearly been calculated to the millisecond. They will always be family. It was a masterstroke of institutional PR. By using those 5 words, William successfully separated the family from the firm. He offered an emotional olive branch while simultaneously upholding the cold, legal reality of the King's decree. It was a clear signal to the world. You can be loved as a relative, but you will not be empowered as a royal if you do not stand on British soil. But as the images of a steady, smiling William began to circulate globally, the scene in Montecito was reportedly one of total chaos. The 82% approval rating in the United Kingdom was a devastating blow to the Sussexes' commercial narrative. They had gambled on public sympathy, but the numbers proved the public had moved on. As the sun sets on this June 27th, the 3 words, "the names removed," have become a permanent mark on the history of the House of Windsor. The legal ties have been cut, and the public has spoken. But in the world of high-stakes power plays, a cornered opponent is often the most dangerous. If William's 5 words were meant to end the debate, why does it feel like they have only ignited a much larger, more global fire? What is the Sussexes' option 0? And are they prepared to use it before the month is over? July 2026. A black vehicle with diplomatic plates pulls slowly into the gated driveway of the Sussex estate in Montecito. This is not a delivery of legal papers or a courier with a commercial contract. Inside a secure diplomatic pouch is a single, heavy, cream-colored envelope, sealed with the crimson wax of the sovereign's private crest. It is a handwritten letter from King Charles III, addressed specifically to Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. The instruction accompanying the letter was as clear as it was heartbreaking. It was not meant for Harry, and it was certainly not meant for Meghan. The king reportedly requested that this letter be placed in a secure location, to be opened only when the children reach an age where they can decide for themselves what their relationship with their British roots should be. It was the king's final act as a grandfather, a silent bridge built over a canyon of public scandal. Prince Harry reportedly received the envelope in total silence. According to those close to the household, he did not share its contents with his media advisors or his legal team. Instead, he walked to a single, high-security locked cabinet in his private study and placed the envelope inside. In that moment, the future of Archie and Lilibet was officially removed from the tactical manipulation of the Sussex brand. By locking that cabinet, Harry was finally admitting that some things are too sacred for a Netflix documentary or a tell-all memoir. The closing of the children's royal status was complete, but their personal connection to history was now a private secret, buried in a drawer in California. While the silence settled in Montecito, the atmosphere in the Royal Hall in London was one of high-velocity renewal. The era of waiting for the Sussexes to return was over. A new official organizational chart was finalized this month, and it sent a definitive message to the world. 3 names have been elevated to fill the vacuum left by the California branch: James, the Duke of Wessex, Peter Phillips, and Harriet Sperling. These 3 individuals have been allocated the entirety of the former Sussex public budget and their international travel schedules. The message from the palace is clinical. The monarchy is a machine that does not stop for those who walk away. By redistributing these resources, the king has ensured that there is no longer a Harry-shaped hole in the institution. The new generation is already on the ground, attending engagements and securing the future of the crown, with a focus on duty over celebrity. As we look toward the future, the seismic events of 2026 have redefined what it means to be a royal. The names removed headline was the end of an era, but it was also the birth of a more streamlined, more resilient House of Windsor. The king has chosen the stability of the state over the emotions of the family, leaving his son with a locked cabinet and a legacy of questions. What happens 10 years from now when Archie finds that key? Will he see the letter as a gift from a king, or a reminder of a life that was traded for a California dream? The battle for the crown may be over, but the battle for the hearts of the next generation has only just begun. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the changing face of the British monarchy. This has been a production of the Royal Insider Network. If you want to stay informed on the secret maneuvers of the global elite, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Don't forget to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think King Charles made the right choice for the future of the monarchy? We value your perspective and look forward to seeing you in our next update. Stay tuned, because the real story is always what happens after the cameras stop rolling. The British Crown never compromises with traitors who make a living by selling out their own blood. As the clock strikes noon on July 15, 2026, the streets of London are not just preparing for a sporting celebration, but for a final reckoning that could dismantle the Sussex Empire forever. The countdown to the 2027 Invictus Games has officially begun, but beneath the surface of the flags and the cheers, a legal time bomb is ticking. King Charles III is facing the ultimate ultimatum. Will he choose the blind love of a father, or will he protect the throne he spent 74 years waiting to inherit? Right now, if you believe the monarchy deserves to be protected from those who exploit it, hit that like button and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. Your support keeps the truth alive. The atmosphere inside the High Court is suffocating. By mid-July, the judge is expected to deliver a definitive verdict on Prince Harry's explosive lawsuit against the Associated Newspapers Limited. This isn't just about privacy anymore, it is about credibility. Internal sources reveal that Harry is in a state of absolute panic. Those close to him describe a man who paces his Montecito office at 3 in the morning, reportedly telling his legal advisors, I cannot be seen as a liar. If this verdict goes against us, the British public will never let me step foot on that soil again. He is terrified that he will be legally branded as someone who provided misleading testimony under oath, a label that would effectively end his public life in the United Kingdom. While Harry spirals, Meghan Markle is playing a much more calculated, albeit desperate game. Her pride has been wounded by a string of Hollywood rejections. The golden gates of the American elite have slowly swung shut, and she has come to a cold realization. As she allegedly told a close associate during a private dinner in May, London is the only stage left where we still carry the weight of a crown. If we lose the UK, we lose the brand. For Meghan, this return to London isn't a homecoming, it is a tactical raid. She sees the Invictus countdown as a life raft to salvage her dwindling global influence, but the king is watching. On the morning of July 20th, 2026, the palace gates remain closed to any informal negotiations. Charles is torn. He is a father who remembers his darling boy, but he is also a king who knows that the institution cannot survive another tell-all betrayal. High-level courtiers suggest the king has been warned that any further concessions to the Sussexes could lead to a constitutional crisis. What do you think? Should King Charles forgive Harry for the sake of the family, or is it too late for a man who chose money over loyalty? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. The fuse has been lit. The world is watching London. By the end of this month, the verdict will be read, and the Sussexes will either find redemption or face their ultimate judgment. The games have truly begun, but the stakes are much higher than a gold medal. This is for the survival of the monarchy itself. Stay tuned to the Royal Insider Network as we bring you every breaking detail of this unfolding drama. The gold is peeling off the gates of the Montecito mansion, revealing a cold, harsh reality that no amount of filtered Instagram posts can hide. While the world looks at the $14 million estate as a symbol of luxury, those inside the walls hear only the echoing silence of a phone that has stopped ringing. The Sussex Empire was built on the promise of global dominance, but as of mid-2026, that empire is crumbling under the weight of bad decisions and a catastrophic loss of credibility. The $14 million mortgage remains a constant, suffocating shadow, a monthly reminder that their lifestyle is an expensive facade that is becoming impossible to maintain. The first major crack in the foundation appeared when the $20 million deal with Spotify was unceremoniously terminated. It wasn't just the loss of the money, it was the public humiliation of being labeled as grifters by industry leaders. Insiders recall the atmosphere in the Sussex household as toxic during that period. Harry was reportedly stunned, unable to comprehend how their brand had devalued so quickly. One former staff member described the tension, saying, "There were days when the silence in the house was deafening." The prince would spend hours looking at the news, realizing for the first time that the royal name alone wasn't enough to secure a blank check in Hollywood. Then came the launch of American Riviera Orchard, or ARO, which was supposed to be Meghan's grand answer to the lifestyle empires of Martha Stewart and Gwyneth Paltrow. Instead, it has become a marketing nightmare. Thousands of words have been written about the brand. Yet, remarkably, there are zero commercial products available for the public to buy. The only evidence of a business consists of 50 jars of jam sent to celebrities' jam that has now become a symbol of stagnation. Imagine the scene in their sprawling garden. Meghan, dressed in a designer gown worth thousands of dollars, posing for a promotional video in a lush setting with not a single guest in sight. She plays the role of the successful CEO, the billionaire's wife, and the ultimate tastemaker. But according to sources close to the production, the reality behind the camera was far from serene. Meghan was reportedly obsessing over the smallest details of the labels, while the actual business infrastructure was non-existent. A creative consultant allegedly remarked during a private meeting in early 2026, "We are selling a dream to people who have already woken up. You cannot build a retail empire on 10 jars of strawberry preserves and a handful of staged photographs." Meghan's internal struggle is perhaps the most tragic element of this decline. She is a woman who prides herself on being a master director of her own life, yet she is currently presiding over a series of failures. The isolation is real. The streaming giants are counting down to zero on their current contracts, and the invitations to A-list events have vanished. She is trapped in the solitude of a failed director, desperately trying to keep the mask of a power woman from slipping. She knows that if the world sees the desperation, the brand is truly dead. As the sun sets over the Pacific, the question is no longer when they will conquer the world, but how much longer they can afford to live in it. The cash flow is drying up, the grifter label refuses to wash away, and the 100% stalemate of their business ventures has left them with nowhere to turn. They are standing on the edge of a financial and social abyss, and the ground is starting to give way. Something has to break, and the next move from the palace might be the final blow they never saw coming. As the summer heat intensifies in July 2026, the most calculated move in modern royal history is about to unfold. This is not just a travel itinerary, it is a tactical deployment. For 4 long years, the faces of Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet have been shielded from the public eye, kept as the ultimate bargaining chips behind the closed gates of Montecito. But now, with their financial empire in ruins and their popularity at an all-time low, Harry and Meghan are preparing to play their final card at the 89th minute. They are bringing the children back to British soil. In the high-stakes world of global branding, this isn't seen as a family reunion. To the seasoned observers of the monarchy, this is emotional blackmail disguised as a homecoming. The Sussexes are tapping into what experts call a curiosity gap, a 4-year void that has left the public and the media starving for a single image of the 2 youngest royals. Insiders suggest that this move is a desperate attempt to force a king, who is currently fighting the most difficult health battle of his life, into a public appearance. The prize they are hunting for is what the media calls the money shot. It is the one image that could reset their entire narrative. A photograph of King Charles III, in his royal robes or perhaps in a rare moment of vulnerability, holding his 2 red-haired grandchildren. For the Sussexes, this photo is worth millions in PR gold. One media strategist reportedly noted during a private briefing in early 2026, one frame of the king smiling at Lilibet would provide enough content for Meghan to capitalize on for the next 5 years. It reattaches them to the crown in a way that no interview ever could. But the strategy is a double-edged sword, designed to trap the king in a lose-lose scenario. If His Majesty refuses to see them, the Sussexes are prepared to play the role of the victim once again, telling the world that the cold and unfeeling institution has rejected 2 innocent children. If he agrees, he risks the very dignity of the throne. The most heartbreaking part of this drama is the internal torment of King Charles himself. At 77 years old, and continuing his grueling battle with cancer, the king is a man facing his own mortality. He is a grandfather who, behind the scenes, is said to be deeply saddened by the distance between him and his youngest grandchildren. Those close to the monarch describe a man who spends quiet evenings looking at old family photos, reportedly telling a trusted aide, "I just want to be a grandfather. I want to hear their laughter in these halls before my time is up. But I fear that every hug I give will be sold to the highest bidder." The king is acutely aware that any private moment shared with Archie and Lilibet could be meticulously documented and transformed into a dramatic scene for a future streaming special. He knows that his love is being used as leverage. He is torn between the instinctive, raw desire of a grandfather to embrace his flesh and blood and the heavy duty of a sovereign who must protect the dignity of the 1,000-year-old monarchy from being turned into a reality show. As the plane carrying the Sussexes descends toward London in mid-July, the world is holding its breath. The stage is set for a confrontation that is less about family and more about the survival of a brand versus the survival of an institution. Will the king open the palace doors? Or will he realize that this homecoming is actually the ultimate trap? The countdown has reached its final seconds, and the answer will change the House of Windsor forever. The Ravik Committee has made its stance clear: 0%. No taxpayer money will be allocated for the security of the prince who chose to walk away. But the real security measures are not happening on the streets. They are being orchestrated behind the heavy oak doors of the palace. Buckingham Palace is no longer playing a game of wait and see. They have shifted into a state of extreme defense. Sources within the household reveal a protocol that feels more like a high-stakes intelligence operation than a family visit. For any potential face-to-face meeting in July 2026, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will reportedly be met with a non-negotiable set of rules. Imagine the tension as they arrive. They are asked to surrender their mobile phones at the entrance. Every staff member in the room has been required to sign ironclad non-disclosure agreements specifically tailored to this visit. But the most striking detail is the reported activation of sophisticated signal jammers in the private drawing rooms. The royal family has learned a painful lesson from the past 4 years. Trust is no longer a commodity they can afford. They are ensuring that no hidden microphone, no smartwatch, and no recording device can capture a single syllable to be sold to a production company or used as a cliffhanger in a future memoir. As one palace courtier allegedly whispered to a colleague, "We are not hosting a family reunion, we are managing a security breach." This level of icy isolation mirrors a dark chapter from 1936, when King Edward VIII abdicated the throne for Wallis Simpson. The monarchy chose a path of dignified, lifetime exile for the couple. They were moved to France and kept in a state of quiet, aristocratic silence. But the contrast between then and now is stark. While Wallis Simpson maintained a sense of reserve, the modern Wallis has taken a different route. Critics are now pointing to the Wallis-Simpson curse with a new twist. Unlike the original Duchess of Windsor, who lived in silence, Meghan has been accused of putting the entire royal lineage on a digital auction block, trading sacred family secrets for a few silver coins from streaming giants. The silence of 1936 has been replaced by the loud, high-definition broadcast of 2026. In the weeks leading up to the London event, a calculated smear campaign began to circulate in certain tabloid corners, attempting to paint Prince William as lazy or unfocused. It appeared to be a classic diversionary tactic, a smokescreen intended to shift the public's frustration away from Montecito. However, the plan backfired almost instantly. In the era of instant information, these claims were met with the cold, hard data of reality. Official records of William's engagements and his relentless work for the Earthshot Prize were highlighted by digital community notes, exposing the narrative as a hollow fabrication. The public saw through the fog, recognizing that while one brother was working, the other was merely performing. Perhaps the most formidable wall the Sussexes will face is the absolute icy contempt of Prince William. The future king is no longer the brother who once shared a bond of shared grief. Having walked through the fire of the last 2 years, standing as a pillar of strength for his wife, Catherine, during her harrowing battle with cancer, William's perspective has hardened. He has seen the fragility of life and the true meaning of duty. To him, the Sussexes' drama is no longer a family quarrel, it is a parasitic nuisance. Those close to the Prince of Wales say his patience has reached zero. He is reportedly focused on one thing only: the survival of his wife and the protection of his children's future. For William, the bridge isn't just burned, the ashes have been swept away. As the London countdown reaches its final days, the palace stands ready. They are not just protecting a king, they are protecting a 1,000-year-old institution from becoming a footnote in a reality television script. The gates are locked, the jammers are on, and the crown is ready to respond with a silence more powerful than any headline. The raid on London is about to meet a resistance that the Sussexes never saw coming. On a brightly lit stage in the heart of London, mid-July 2026, Prince Harry stands before a crowd of thousands. His voice is steady, his tone heroic, as he delivers a moving tribute to wounded veterans, brave men and women who have sacrificed limbs and health for their country. He speaks of courage, of the sanctity of family, and of the unbreakable bond of loyalty. But as the cameras flash and the applause rings out, a shadow of staggering hypocrisy looms over the event, casting a dark cloud that no amount of PR can hide. Thousands of miles away, in a quiet home in Mexico, an 81-year-old man sits in a wheelchair, facing the most difficult days of his life. Thomas Markle, Meghan's father, has recently undergone a devastating surgery to amputate his leg due to severe health complications. He is a man who has literally lost a part of his body, much like the veterans Harry is praising on stage. Yet, internal sources confirm that during this time of physical and emotional trauma, there has been zero contact from his daughter. No phone calls have been made, no flowers have been sent, and the grandfather of the two royal children has been left to recover in isolation. The irony is savage. While the Sussexes brand themselves as global icons of compassion and healing, they allow their own flesh and blood to suffer alone. This glaring contradiction has pushed their public image to a breaking point. By July 2026, Meghan is reportedly working with her 12th crisis management team. After burning through 11 previous high-profile PR firms who failed to rehabilitate her image, the current team has issued a brutal, final ultimatum. The advice is clear and non-negotiable. If she wants to survive the vitriol of the British public and the scrutiny of the international press during this London trip, she must eat a massive serving of humble pie. The strategy dictated by her advisors is a psychological nightmare for the Duchess. She has been told to stay in the shadows and become invisible. The directive is to strip away the million-dollar designer labels, cancel the choreographed grand entrances, and play the role of the quiet, submissive, supporting wife. For a woman who has spent years curating her brand as a powerhouse lead and a global influencer, being relegated to a background character is a form of professional torture. Her team reportedly warned her during a high-tension briefing in June, "If you make this trip about your wardrobe or your personal narrative, the public reaction will be terminal. You must be seen as the shadow, or you will be seen as the villain." But the message may have arrived too late. Within the Invictus community itself, the atmosphere has turned icy. Many veterans and their families, the very people the Games were designed to honor, have expressed a growing sense of betrayal. In the weeks leading up to the July event, a wave of resentment surged through veteran forums, with many threatening to boycott the ceremonies. One former sergeant, a three-time Invictus competitor, voiced the frustration of many. "The Games were started to give us a voice and a purpose, but they have been hijacked. It has turned into a stage for a Hollywood reality show. We are tired of being the props for the Meghan Markle brand." As the event unfolds, the tension is palpable. Meghan sits in the stands, dressed in intentionally muted, inexpensive tones, her smile fixed and rigid. Every move is being calculated to look humble, but the public is no longer easily fooled. They are looking past the carefully staged photos and seeing the daughter who abandoned her sick father and the prince who uses heroism to mask his own domestic failures. The humble pie strategy is a last-ditch gamble for survival, but as the crowd's silence grows louder than the applause, one question remains. Can a brand built on curated compassion survive the truth of its own cold reality? The mask is slipping, and what lies beneath might be the end of the Sussex story as we know it. The digital landscape of Great Britain is currently engulfed in a firestorm of public fury that the palace cannot ignore. As we move deeper into July 2026, the data reveals a chilling shift in national sentiment. On every major social platform and in the comment sections of every national newspaper, two words are trending with terrifying frequency: rogue king and abdicate. For the first time in his reign, King Charles III is not just facing a family crisis, he is facing a crisis of legitimacy. The British people, who have remained stoic through years of Sussex-led drama, are finally reaching a breaking point. They are no longer asking the king to be a father. They are demanding he be a sovereign. The stakes have never been more dangerous. If the High Court verdict from earlier this month has indeed painted Prince Harry as someone who was less than truthful under oath, Any gesture of warmth from the king would be seen as a catastrophic endorsement of dishonesty. Behind palace walls, the tension is described as nuclear. Senior advisors have reportedly presented the king with a grim reality. If he welcomes a legally tarnished Harry into the royal fold, the credibility of the entire 1,000-year-old institution will evaporate overnight. The public view is clear. You cannot protect the crown while embracing the man who spent years trying to dismantle it for profit. To mitigate this disaster, the palace has activated a strategic vacuum protocol. It is no coincidence that as Prince Harry's plane touches down in London, Prince William is scheduled to be thousands of miles away on an official state visit. This isn't just a scheduling conflict, it is a deliberate, public execution of a boundary. By pushing the Prince of Wales out of the country, the palace is signalling to the world that the future of the monarchy, the steady, dutiful line of succession, has no interest in the media circus unfolding on the Invictus stage. William's absence is his loudest statement yet. He is refusing to provide the Sussexes with the oxygen of royal proximity, leaving Harry to stand alone in the cold light of his own choices. King Charles now stands at the most treacherous crossroads of his life. He is a man who spent 74 years preparing for this throne, yet he is being warned that his own paternal leniency could be the match that lights the fire. This is no longer a private matter of a darling boy returning home. This is about a king who inherited a crown polished by the sacrifice and silence of Queen Elizabeth, the second a crown that is now being threatened by the very bloodline it is meant to ennoble. High-level courtiers have reportedly told the king that any sign of surrender to the Sussexes' demands will be seen as a betrayal of his mother's legacy. He is being asked to choose the love of a son or the survival of the House of Windsor. Make no mistake, this trip in July 2026 is not about a sporting event, nor is it about family healing. It is the final, desperate gamble of a media operation that is running out of money, running out of friends, and running out of time. They are parasitic players in a game they no longer control, hoping for one last royal association to keep their brand alive. But the walls of the palace have never been higher, and the patience of the British public has never been thinner. The answer the king gives in the coming days will define the future of the British monarchy for the next century. Will he hold the line, or will he let the crown slip? If you want to stay ahead of every breaking development in this royal endgame, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Royal Insider Network. We are your eyes and ears inside the palace. What do you think? Is it time for the king to choose duty over family once and for all? Drop a comment below and join the conversation. We're watching the history of the crown unfold together.